Wide shot. Atlanta skyline at dusk. The air glows gold. Cut to black. A single sound. The slam of a prison cell door. They thought he was just another black man with a loud mouth and a nice suit. Cut to slow motion. A gavel slamming, police lights strobing, a woman screaming behind courtroom glass. They thought 10 years behind bars would be enough to shut him up. But what they didn't know was that he was wearing a badge under that suit the whole damn time. Bass drop. Quick cuts. Flashbacks of secret recordings, courtroom betrayals, a gun in a trunk, a child holding a phone, a judge turning pale. This isn't just a story about injustice. It's about a system built to break you, and a man who walked into its heart with a hidden truth sharper than any lie they could fabricate. Welcome to Black Footprints, where true stories of resistance, corruption, and power hits are told like a cinematic punch to the chest. If you're here for soft endings and feel-good justice, you might want to change the channel. But if you're ready for a roller coaster of betrayals, bombs, bravery, and the biggest courtroom twist you've ever seen, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will blow your mind. Let's begin. The courtroom was silent enough to hear a heartbeat, if anyone still had one left that hadn't already been broken. Atlanta heat pressed through the walls of Fulton County Courthouse, sticking to skin like shame. At the center of it all stood Malik Hayes, 38 years old, black, sharp-suited, and silent as stone. A successful entrepreneur, a husband, a man who'd built everything from nothing, and now he was being sentenced as a criminal. 10 years, Judge Clarence Tate intoned, his gavel falling like thunder. For the aggravated assault of a peace officer. Malik didn't flinch, didn't blink. He stood there like a statue carved from quiet rage, his eyes fixed on the far wall. Not on the judge, not on the murmuring gallery, and certainly not on Officer Karen Whitmore, the blonde cop with a steel spine and venom in her smirk, who sat smugly in her crisp blue uniform, arms crossed, like she'd just won a game she'd rigged. She didn't look like justice. She looked like retribution with a badge. Serves him right, someone in the back row whispered. He hit a cop, another murmured. But they didn't see what Malik saw, what he knew. There was something behind his silence, something beneath the polished shoes and the tight lips and the hands that never trembled. Not resignation, not defeat. It was calculation. Malik Hayes had been playing a longer game. As the bailiff approached to cuff him, Karen leaned slightly forward in her seat, her hazel eyes glinting with satisfaction. This was the moment she lived for, the fall of a black man who didn't bow, who didn't break, who didn't blink when she pulled him over for nothing. But just before the bailiff reached for Malik's wrists, something shifted. A court clerk, barely more than a shadow, slipped forward like a breeze through a crack in a door. In her hands, a sealed envelope, heavy, marked with the Department of Justice seal. She leaned in, whispered something only the judge could hear. Judge Tate froze, his gavel still mid-air. He took the envelope, opened it carefully, and as he read, his face drained of color. The courtroom, still abuzz with victory and vengeance, didn't notice at first. But then his hand trembled. A man who'd sentenced thousands, shaken by paper and ink. Karen's smirk faltered just slightly. "What is it?" she mouthed, but the judge ignored her. Malik finally moved. Just a tilt of the head, just enough to lock eyes with her. His expression? Not angry, not afraid, knowing. It was like watching a chessboard flip upside down in an instant. Like realizing the king you thought you'd cornered was just a decoy, and the real one had been circling you the whole time. The judge cleared his throat. Court is adjourned, pending immediate review. Karen stood up, her confidence wobbling now, her smile slipping. What review? We just sentenced him. The judge didn't answer. Malik turned to her then, fully. He didn't speak. He didn't have to, because in that moment, everything changed. The trap had been set, but it wasn't for him. It was for her. And somewhere behind the silent tension, behind the sweat and whispers and distant sirens of an Atlanta afternoon, the truth was beginning to breathe. Malik Hayes wasn't going to prison. He was about to blow the roof off the system that tried to bury him. 3 weeks before the courtroom fell silent under the weight of a sealed envelope, Malik Hayes was just a man heading home from work. It was a warm Friday evening in Atlanta, the kind that hummed with the slow rhythm of weekend hope. His sleek black BMW rolled down Peachtree Street, the radio whispering Coltrane through the speakers. His suit jacket hung open, the top button of his shirt undone. The kind of peace that takes years to earn. That's when the blue and red lights hit his rearview mirror. He sighed, not out of guilt, but out of memory. That tired, familiar feeling that came every time a black man got pulled over for the crime of existing. The police cruiser pulled up alongside him. The window rolled down, and Officer Karen Whitmore leaned out, voice clipped and commanding. "You've got a broken taillight, sir," she barked. She hadn't even checked. Malik turned, calm and collected. "I just had it serviced last week," he said, voice even, tone respectful, measured. He'd learned that tone as a teenager, the one that could mean the difference between going home or getting cuffed. But Karen wasn't looking for answers. She was looking for control. Step out of the vehicle. No probable cause. No backup. Just authority wielded like a hammer. Malik hesitated for half a breath, then did as instructed. Hands visible, movement slow. He knew the choreography. He danced it too many times before. She grabbed him the moment his feet hit the pavement, twisted his arm hard behind his back, shoved his chest onto the hood. Her nails dug into his wrist. "You're in a high-crime area," she snapped. "Driving slow. Looking like you don't belong." Buckhead wasn't a high-crime area. It was luxury boutiques and gated condos. But to her, the only thing out of place was him. "I live 5 miles from here," Malik managed through gritted teeth. She didn't care. She cuffed him, pressed his face into the hood of his own car, and told the growing crowd, "Suspicious activity. Possible burglary suspect." Someone laughed. Another pulled out a phone. Most just watched, eyes wide, unsure whether they were seeing justice or theater. At the station, he was booked fast. Fingerprints, mugshot, charges that shifted with her mood. Ava Hayes, his wife, arrived within the hour, worried, frantic, but was turned away. "You can't see him," they told her. "He's being processed. Processed. Like meat. Like evidence. Like something less than human." When they finally let Malik sit in his cell, his jaw bruised, his wrists red and raw, he didn't scream. He didn't beg. He waited. Because Malik had a card Karen didn't know about. His car's dash cam. High res. Wide angle. Audio synced. And every second of that stop was captured, including her lies, her aggression, her assault. The moment he got his phone back, he emailed the footage to Naomi Blake, his longtime lawyer and trusted friend. "Upload this," he wrote. Now. Within hours, the internet exploded. Hashtag Justice for Malik started on Black Twitter, then leapt to TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. He didn't resist. She assaulted him. This happens every day. By morning, the video had hit 250,000 views. By afternoon, it was a headline. Malik Hayes wasn't just another black man pulled over. He was the spark. And Officer Karen Whitmore? She didn't know it yet, but she had just lit the match that would burn her world to the ground. Officer Karen Whitmore sat in her dimly lit apartment, blinds shut tight, TV on mute, news clips of Malik Hayes playing on repeat. Every station, every scroll. His face was everywhere now, polished, poised, and dangerous. Not dangerous because he had a weapon. Dangerous because he had the truth, and worse, people were listening. She took a long drag of her cigarette, the ember flaring like the heat rising in her chest. She had underestimated him, and now she needed help. Her fingers hovered over a number she hadn't dialed in years. She finally tapped it. Raymond Cross, former deputy chief, corrupt to the bone, her old mentor, her last card. When he answered, his voice was a low growl soaked in bourbon. "Karen, I heard you're in deep." "I'm sinking," she replied. "And you owe me." He chuckled. "I remember. That IA mess I buried for you. What's in it for me this time?" "A clean slate," she whispered. "And the head of the guy who's trying to take us both down." By the next morning, they had a plan. A dirty Glock, stolen from an evidence locker that Raymond had conveniently misplaced years ago, was wiped clean, serial number filed off. Karen drove past Malik's home like a predator circling a den. She waited until the lights went out, until his wife, Ava, had left for her night shift at the hospital. Then she crept into the driveway, gloves on, heart steady, popped the trunk of Malik's BMW with practiced ease, and slipped the gun under the spare tire. One motion, one lie, enough to destroy a man. She shut the trunk softly. No witnesses, or so she thought. Across the street, nestled between buckets of sunflowers and baby's breath, a little girl sat quietly beside her mother's flower stand. Her name was Imani Walker, 9 years old, bright eyes, curls pulled into a ponytail, and always curious. Her mother was talking to a customer, so Imani held the phone and played with the camera, as she loved to do. When she saw the officer, same woman from a video on her mom's Facebook, sneaking around Malik's car, her instincts told her this wasn't right. She hit record. Imani caught the gloved hands. The trunk opened, the glint of cold steel disappearing into darkness. And then, silence. She didn't know what she had, not exactly. But she knew it was important. That same night, an anonymous call rang into Atlanta PD's tip line. Check Malik Hayes. Black BMW. He's got a gun in the trunk. Dangerous. Might be planning something. No name. No voice print. Just enough to trigger a raid. The next morning, police swarmed Malik's driveway. Guns drawn. Sirens screaming. Ava ran outside in her robe, eyes wide with panic. Malik froze on the porch, hands raised. The cops popped the trunk, pulled out the planted Glock, held it high like a trophy. Got him, they roared. Malik's heart dropped, not from guilt, but from the trap snapping shut. He was arrested again. Cameras flashed. The press devoured it like blood in the water. Community hero turns criminal? Was he playing us all along? Meanwhile, Imani clutched her phone with both hands, unsure what to do. She showed her mom, whispered, "I think I saw something." But before they could act, her mom pulled her close. "Not now, baby. Don't get involved. These things, they're dangerous." Imani looked back across the street, where Malik's car now sat empty, the trunk still open, yellow tape flapping in the morning breeze. She didn't know it yet, but the secret she held in her little hands might just be the key to setting a man free. If only she could be brave enough to share it. From behind the cold steel bars of his cell, Malik Hayes watched a sliver of Atlanta sky through a window the size of shoebox. He couldn't see much, just a slice of gray, sometimes a pigeon, but that tiny view was all he had to remember the world he once moved freely through. The world where he had built a business from the ground up, kissed his wife good morning in their warm kitchen, and planned for a future he believed he could control. Now, that world was crumbling outside the walls, and taking the people he loved with it. Though the police had dragged him in for a second time, the truth had already taken root. The dashcam video of his first arrest, Karen's aggression, his calm compliance, was still out there. People shared it, argued over it, fought for him in hashtags. Hashtag justice for Malik. Hashtag stand with Hayes. And for a moment, it felt like the tide might be turning. But for every voice that stood up, another whispered from the shadows. That's how it always starts. The first blow didn't come from the courthouse. It came from a cheery place called Sunshine Meadows Preschool, where Ava Hayes, Malik's wife, had worked for 6 years teaching toddlers how to spell kindness with colored blocks. The principal called her into the office. Her voice was soft, apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Ava, but we received threats." A post had gone viral on a fringe message board. "Wife of cop attacker teaches kids." What are they learning? Phone calls followed. "She's hiding weapons in the classroom. If you don't fire her, we'll burn it down." So they did the only thing cowards do. They fired her. That night, Malik didn't sleep. He sat on the edge of his jail cot, fists clenched, mind spiraling. Ava had done nothing but love him, believe in him, and now she was paying the price for his war. And it wasn't over. 2 days later, someone hurled a brick through the front window of their home. The sound of glass shattering still rang in Ava's ears. On the broken pane, someone had spray-painted an angry, dripping red. "Go back where you came from." It ran down the glass like blood. A neighbor across the street had watched it happen. He didn't call the cops. He closed his blinds. Back in his cell, Malik stared at the plea deal in front of him. 4 pages, crisp and clinical. Plead guilty. Serve 5 years. Get out in 3. He picked up the pen. His hand hovered. Maybe it was the only way to end this. To protect her. To stop the bleeding. The door clanged open. Ava walked in, her face drawn but her spine straight. She looked at him through the thick glass, eyes rimmed red but burning. "I lost my job," she said. "I know," Malik whispered. "They vandalized our house." "I know. They're trying to erase you." A pause. "And now," she said slowly, "you're going to let them?" She saw the paper, the pen in his hand, the shame in his silence. Something in her snapped. She slammed her palm against the glass. "No, Malik, you don't get to die like this. Not with a signature. You don't get to bow out and call it protection." "I'm doing it for you," he said quietly. "No," she said, voice shaking, tears finally breaking free. "You're doing it to give them what they want. You don't get to give up. Not after what they've done. Not after what they took from us." And then, with fire in her eyes, she reached through the slot in the glass, grabbed the plea deal, and tore it in half. The pieces fluttered to the floor like dead leaves. Malik stared at her, breathless. For the first time in days, he felt something stir in his chest. Not rage, not fear, hope, because this fight wasn't just his anymore. It never was. It was theirs. And if he was going to burn, he would burn fighting. The parking lot behind the 10th precinct smelled like old oil and wet pavement. It was nearly midnight when Tyrell Grant showed up, jacket zipped to his chin, cap pulled low, eyes darting like a man who knew too much and had waited too long to say it. Malik Hayes stood in the shadows, thinner now from weeks of confinement, but no less resolute. His posture was tense, unreadable, like a boxer waiting to hear the bell before the final round. "You alone?" Tyrell asked, voice tight. Malik nodded. "You said you had something." Tyrell looked around once more before pulling a digital recorder from his pocket, small, gray, scuffed on the side. He hit play. The voice that came through was unmistakable. Deputy Chief Raymond Cross. "We plant the gun, spin the press, and let Whitmore rile the crowd. Guy han song la song do, no? You sure this won't blow back?" Karen's voice followed, sharp and confident. "Please," Raymond scoffed. "He's a black man with a rap sheet they don't need proof for." Malik's breath caught in his throat. It was more than a smoking gun. It was an entire arsenal. Tyrell's hands were trembling. "I shouldn't be doing this," he muttered. "But I didn't join the force to be part of this filth. I saw what they did to you, and it's wrong. All of it." The next morning, Naomi Blake slammed the door to her office, eyes lit with a fire Malik hadn't seen in weeks. "This," she said, holding up the recorder, "this is gold. No, scratch that. This is platinum. We're going to bury them with it." She filed a motion within hours. The press caught wind. Hashtags roared back to life. Hashtag exonerate Malik. Hashtag crosscut. Hashtag truth tapes. For the first time, Malik dared to believe he might actually walk out free and make them pay. But predators don't go quietly. Karen Whitmore had eyes and ears in every hallway of that precinct. When she noticed Tyrell avoiding her gaze, ducking into corners, whispering to himself, she knew. She didn't yell, didn't threaten. She smiled. Then she pulled his old academy file, the one nobody was supposed to see. Inside, a failed drug test buried under a pile of exceptions and favors. She confronted him in the locker room, voice low like poison. "You like wearing that badge?" she asked. Tyrell froze. "You want to keep it? You're going to fix this." He tried to resist. He lasted 12 hours. In court the next day, Naomi stood tall, confident. She clicked the recorder, ready to play the tape. The courtroom leaned in. The judge raised an eyebrow. But then, the prosecutor stood first. "Your Honor, we have a surprise witness." Tyrell walked in, uniform on, face pale. Naomi's eyes widened. Malik stiffened. Tyrell wouldn't meet their gaze. He sat, swore in, then dropped the dagger. "Malik Hayes offered me $500 to fake a recording of Chief Cross. He told me exactly what to say. I went along with it." "I'm sorry." The courtroom exploded. Gasps. Shouts. One woman clutched her chest. Someone hissed, "He's just another scam artist." Malik stood, jaw clenched. "That's not true." But the judge banged his gavel. "Silence, Mr. Hayes." Naomi launched into a furious objection, citing lack of proof, but the damage was done. The jury didn't need facts. They had the betrayal. They had the headline. The tape, their gold, was now tarnished, labeled as doctored fiction. The very thing that could have saved Malik had been flipped, poisoned, turned against him. Karen watched it unfold from her seat, legs crossed, the faintest curl of victory touching her lips. Tyrell didn't look up. When the court adjourned, Malik sat motionless. It wasn't the chains that weighed him down. It was the betrayal that broke him. The summer heat in Atlanta didn't let up, not even for justice. It wrapped around the city like a noose, thick and breathless. But the crowd gathered anyway. Over 300 people packed the concrete lot outside the Fulton County Courthouse that Saturday afternoon. Sweat dripping from brows, signs raised high, voices louder than the hum of cameras and police radios. They came from Malik Hayes, a man they believed had been wronged, framed, and silenced. But not today. Today, he would be heard. At the front of the stage stood Ava Hayes, Malik's wife, her braids tied back, a yellow sundress catching the sunlight. Her voice rang out, clear and strong. My husband is not a criminal. He is a son of this city, a builder, a survivor. And if they can do this to him, they can do it to any of us. Applause swelled. Chants followed. Justice for Malik. Hands off our people. The media circled like bees to honey. CNN, Channel 6, even a few national outlets streaming live. It was the kind of moment movements are born from. And it was exactly the kind of moment Deputy Chief Raymond Cross wanted to destroy. From the shadows, he watched the rally through a live stream on his phone, the glow from the screen reflecting off his whiskey glass. He leaned back in his leather chair and muttered to no one, "Time to kill the story." Enter Red Briggs, real name Darnell, known on the streets as Red, a wiry ex-con with a record longer than the Mississippi. 2 days earlier, Raymond had handed him a duffel bag, $5,000 in cash, and a simple order. Make it messy. Red delivered. He slipped into the crowd unnoticed, greasy baseball cap pulled low, duffel bag tucked beneath the folding chairs near the vacant lot adjacent to the stage, an empty zone no one thought twice about. Until it was too late. Malik, just released on bail, stood near the edge of the crowd with Naomi and Ava, smiling for the first time in days. He had no speech, no script, just presence. "I just want to say thank you," he began. Boom. The blast ripped through the air like the sky had cracked open. A fireball erupted from the lot, shaking the stage, blowing out windows for blocks. Screams filled the air. Bodies flew. A camera toppled. The crowd became chaos. A mother shrieked. A child wailed. Smoke poured across the concrete like a ghost, thick with dust and ash. 3 were killed instantly. A teenager holding a Black Lives Matter sign. An elderly woman who'd brought cookies for the volunteers. A cameraman from a local station. Over 30 others were injured. Some bleeding, others shell-shocked, crawling away on hands and knees. Malik pulled Ava to the ground, shielding her with his body. Naomi screamed for help. Sirens wailed from every direction. And within minutes, they spun it. Police rushed in, guns drawn, ordering Malik to the ground. His ears still rang from the explosion. He held his hands up, dazed. "You a cop," bellowed. "You caused this." "What?" "No," Malik stammered. But it didn't matter. The media, still filming, caught the cuffs as they snapped shut. The headlines wrote themselves before the facts ever had a chance. Bomb at Justice Rally. Malik Hayes arrested. Riot turned deadly. Violence follows Hayes wherever he goes. Karen Whitmore watched from an unmarked squad car a block away. Her lips curled into a smile. Raymond Cross poured himself another drink, murmuring, "Game over." But what neither of them knew was that the ashes still held embers. And Malik Hayes wasn't done burning. Hope returned like a whisper. After the explosion, after the blood and fire, after Malik Hayes was dragged away for the 3rd time, wrists bruised and soul nearly broken, something flickered in the dark. Tyrell Grant had gone quiet since the trial, since his betrayal. But guilt, like rot, grows in silence. Late one night, Naomi Blake found an envelope slipped under her office door. Inside was a torn page from the precinct's property log. One line, evidence tag number 943 27. Audio recorder. Room B2, active. No name. No signature. But Naomi knew what it meant. The original tape, the one where Deputy Chief Raymond Cross confessed to framing Malik, was still alive. She moved fast, filed an emergency motion, drove straight to Judge Clarence Tate's home, knocking on his door at 10:41 p.m. He answered in slippers and a silk robe, eyes bleary but curious. She laid out the file, the corruption, the fire, the pattern. "This man was set up," she said, "and I can prove it. Let me open that door." Judge Tate read in silence. Then he nodded. "I'll issue the order. Go get your justice, Ms. Blake." But they weren't the only ones moving in the night. Across town, in the basement of the 10th Precinct, a rookie officer sat half asleep behind the evidence room desk. A heavy-set man with a gray mustache and a voice like sandpaper appeared in front of him. "Raymond Cross. You need a break, son," he said, slapping a $50 bill on the desk. "Go grab a coffee." The kid hesitated, then left. Raymond stepped inside, flashlight in hand. His fingers knew exactly where to go. Row 4, box 7. He found a recorder. Still intact. Still dangerous. He pulled out a silver flask, unscrewed the cap, poured lighter fluid into the box, soaked the contents. Then struck a match. The plastic hissed. The label curled. History turned to smoke. By morning, the fire had gone cold. Naomi arrived with the court order. She ran into the rookie at the door. He looked down, then away. "There was a fire," he muttered. "Electrical. Everything in that box. Gone." She stared at the ashes in disbelief. When the trial resumed, the copy of the tape was deemed inadmissible. "No chain of custody," the prosecutor sneered. "Could have come from anywhere." Still, Naomi pushed on. But Karen had already laid her next trap. She presented doctored photographs, grainy black and whites showing Malik allegedly lurking near her apartment, behind her car, watching from the shadows like a predator. She played the victim to perfection. "He stalked me," she whispered on the stand, her voice breaking just enough. "Sent me messages. I was afraid to sleep. No proof of any texts, emails, voicemails." Naomi demanded. "I deleted them." "I panicked," Karen replied, tears glistening. The courtroom leaned toward her like sunflowers chasing light. A juror in the second row shook her head, disgusted. "He's obsessed," someone whispered. "This guy's unstable," said another. Malik sat silent, jaw clenched, hands shaking beneath the table. He wanted to scream, to fight, to plead, but truth without proof is just noise. And they weren't listening. Not anymore. The jury deliberated for just under 2 hours. Guilty. Assault on an officer. Aggravated stalking. Manslaughter by incitement. 10 years. No parole. When the sentence was read aloud, Ava gasped so sharply the room seemed to inhale with her. She stumbled forward from the gallery, tears streaking down her cheeks, hands pressed to her mouth like she was trying to hold her soul inside her body. Malik turned his head, just enough to see her. "I'm sorry," he mouthed. She shook her head, whispering, "No, this isn't real." But it was. They'd lost. Not because he was guilty, but because the system had burned the truth before it could breathe. And outside the courthouse, Raymond Cross lit a fresh cigar. "Checkmate," he muttered, as smoke curled toward the morning sky. The holding room behind Courtroom 7B was sterile. Gray walls, flickering lights, the faint scent of bleach and defeat. Malik Hayes sat on the bench, wrists cuffed, ankles shackled, dressed in a gray suit that now felt more like a burial shroud than courtroom attire. Outside, the world thought justice had been served. The jury had delivered its verdict. The gavel had dropped. The cameras had clicked. Karen Whitmore had smiled her poisonous little smile. Raymond Cross had walked out like a man untouchable. And Malik? He was moments away from being loaded into a prison van, sentenced to 10 years of silence. But he wasn't done. He looked up as the door creaked open and Judge Clarence Tate entered, the bailiff in tow. Malik stood. He straightened his shoulders, not with the weight of guilt, but with the quiet strength of a man who had just stepped onto his battlefield. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady and full, "before you send me away, you need to read what's in that envelope your clerk handed you this morning." Tate furrowed his brows. What is this, Mr. Hayes? Malik's eyes didn't flinch. I'm not Mr. Hayes. I'm Special Agent Malik Hayes. FBI, Anti-Corruption Task Force. I've been undercover in Atlanta for 3 years investigating systemic abuse in law enforcement. The judge froze. The room turned to ice. A beat, then two. He opened the sealed envelope. His hands trembled. Inside, an official DOJ file. A badge. A signed letter from the director of the FBI. Photos. Audio logs. Evidence trees. Names. Dates. Karen Whitmore. Raymond Cross. Dozens of others. Tate's face drained of color. Oh my God. Malik stepped forward. Everything you just sentenced me for was a setup, and every second of it was recorded. Outside, chaos erupted. The judge stormed back into the courtroom, waving the file in the air. This court has been misled under federal investigation, he shouted. Karen Whitmore rose in protest. He's lying. This is some stunt. But then the bailiff moved, cuffed her wrists. Read her rights. Raymond Cross tried to slip out the back. Didn't make it 2 steps. 2 federal agents appeared from the gallery, guns holstered but hands ready. Deputy Chief Cross, you're under arrest for conspiracy, destruction of federal evidence, obstruction of justice. The gallery lost it. Gasps, screams, applause. And then, from the back row, a small voice piped up. I have something too. Heads turned. A little girl stood, clutching a phone with both hands. Imani Walker, daughter of the florist across the street. I saw her. That lady, she said, pointing at Karen. I recorded her putting something in Mr. Hayes' trunk. A tech grabbed the phone, played the clip. There it was. Karen. Gloves. Trunk open. The Glock. The truth. Every lie. Undone by a 9-year-old with a phone and a conscience. Tate banged the gavel again, this time with righteous fire. All charges dismissed. Effective immediately. Agent Hayes, you're free to go. Malik turned. Ava was already running down the aisle. He caught her in his arms, held her like she was the last soft place on earth. She sobbed into his chest. He whispered against her temple. It's over. But then he looked beyond her, beyond the cameras, the flashing lights, the stunned jurors, and broken villains. His eyes narrowed. No, he said. Not yet. Naomi stepped beside him, lips curled into a quiet smile. They never knew he had them. You knew? Ava asked, breathless. Naomi winked. Day 1. Outside, as they stepped into the sunlight, the crowd roared. Reporters shoved microphones forward. Agent Hayes, what now? Malik looked at the skyline, at the Capitol's silhouette in the distance. The war doesn't end here, he said. Next stop, Congress. Because corruption didn't start in one precinct. And Malik Hayes wasn't done. Not by a long shot.